So, episode two. Oh,
No title yet. We'll figure it out later.
I got a title on mine. Oh, like for the upload?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't even know what you
No,
named episode one.
I just told just introductions because
I was gonna say,
that's all
yeah.
it was. I don't come up with a title until after we finish. That way it makes more sense. But yeah,
Anyway,
episode two.
to the Whisper Reflections podcast, everybody. We're here to get deep again.
Little
So
little deeper than probably the first episode. Um,
grab your snacks, grab your drinks, buckle in.
so episode one, we touched a little bit about communication, and we talked about a lot of stuff, but that was kind of the thing that I wanted to dive, and you said yourself too, you wanted to dive a little more into that. Um,
Yeah, because well, I wouldn't say we ended on it, but it was near the end, and just felt like there wasn't enough talked about it.
no, I don't think it was because I mean it's a arguably one of the most important things that a human can do is be able to communicate.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, with how deep we can get into it, I would say that it could be a 30 episode trilogy on communication.
It
Yeah.
could. I'd prefer it
We're
not
not
to
going to,
be, but
but
maybe, I mean, maybe we can condense as much as possible down into an hour and a half, 2 hours. Um,
yeah, I mean, it'll get mentioned a lot because it's, you know, communication is the biggest thing.
with that being said, right, I found this quote. We'll start doing quotes of the week. Every episode, we'll come up with a different quote. Might even put a channel in the Discord where people can start dropping quotes and we can start picking from them.
Even
Um,
if they're your own.
yeah, even if they're your own, it doesn't have to be somebody um, famous or anybody who's yeah, it could be your own, but it's got to relate to the topic of the episode or the general topic, right? So this one is by an author named Roy T. Bennett. It says he said, "Listen with curiosity, speak with honesty, act with integrity. The greatest problem with communication is we don't listen to understand, we listen to reply. When we listen with curiosity, we don't listen with the intent to reply, we listen for what's behind the words." And I found that quote and I was like, you know what? This is perfect. This is perfect.
Oh, yeah. It
Because,
definitely fits the agenda of what we're talking about today. I'm going to need that on D&D, buddy.
yeah, I got you. But when he says, listen to understand, not to reply, that is something that I think a lot of people forget to do because we grow up listening to our parents give us, commands to do this or do that because we're still young. But a lot of the times we don't understand what they're saying to us, right? Like they can tell us to do something, but we don't necessarily understand the reasons why. So when you bring that into your adult life, and especially with when it comes to like work or a relationship or a friendship, whatever, you start bringing that into your adult life, you start to develop this habit of, okay, they're saying something, now I have to say something. But
Right.
sometimes you don't have to, right? Sometimes silence in itself is a form of communication is very deafening if you know the context of the conversation. Um,
Right.
you had a story that you had told me about that happened, what was it, a couple years ago?
It's not on my foot towels.
Yeah.
I don't remember when it was,
I think
but
I think that is a good example of of silence being deafening, right?
Yeah, yeah. Which we can talk about that if you want,
If
but
yeah, if you want, we can start off with that. It's kind of heavy, so brace yourself, viewers, you know.
yeah, I'm gonna brace myself for it. So I want to say it was 2025. I want to say it was probably 2023. No, it was before that. I wasn't even married yet. Either way, whatever year it was, I hit up a buddy. I won't mention his name just in case, but hit up a buddy, and we was gonna go shooting. Uh, a bit political here, yes. I'm a gun owner. I, I think you should own one if you can own one. Besides the point. Anyway, go to shoot some guns, and we were going to the indoor gun range. That's probably like 5 6 miles from my house. It's like a 15-minute car ride. We get there. It's a normal day. You know, not a lot of people in there because we went kind of early. Like we went like an hour after they opened. And I'm gonna lay out the whole scene, right? So we walk in. There's a lady at the desk. You know, she's getting the whole spiel about point it down range at all times. Don't do this. Don't do that.
Mhm.
You know, if you've ever been there, you know I'm not gonna go into deep about it, but yeah. So we walk up to the counter. We're getting the whole spiel. Yeah, give us that. Give us those. All right, here's your stuff. You know, you're in this lane. So this specific gun range, you walk into the counter, and like, so you're facing the counter. Everywhere you shoot is all to your left. There's a gun store to the right, whatever. So you get your stuff. You go through the double doors on the left, and then you have room A, which I think it's like what 10 lanes in each one,
Yeah, I think so.
something like that. Maybe not even 10, but something like that. So you have room A, B, and C. When I say there was like nobody there, there was literally nobody there. Just me, my buddy, the lady at the counter. I think somebody was walking out as we walked in, and there was a guy that was in. I want to say it was like B5. I don't know why I specifically remember that, but yeah, he was in there by himself. That was the only person in there. We walk into C4. I will never forget this. She gets into C2. Holy, this shit, dude, it's tough to talk about. So we pull all our stuff on the table, and well, let's get the part there. So we walk in, just walk into the Z room, and he holds the door for her. They have a brief little like thank you for holding the door, whatever, you know what I'm saying. And then I walk up to the table, start putting all my stuff on the table, set up my target. I start loading my gun. My buddy starts loading his gun because usually it's one person in front of the line at a time. Like when you're loading, they have cameras and everything. They don't really care. Like, go
Hmm.
ahead, do what you got to do. If you're setting your stuff up, it's whatever. And so the lady asked for some help. She was a first time shooter. And so my buddy Sean was like, all right, yeah, like I'll go over there and help her. And I'm like, all right, cool. So he goes over there, he helps her. I keep loading my stuff up. He walks over there, loads it for her, and she's like, where do I put the target at? And he's like, usually we put it about right here. He puts the target up there. He uses the little button to send it out to the distance so we usually shoot at. And then she was like, well, like, what do I do with the gun? He was like, oh, you just, you do this, you do that. And he does it for her just because she was still confused about it a little bit. So he was like, let me show you. And she was like, all right, thank you. And as he steps back to C4 where we are, the gun goes off. And I was like, that's fast. Like, new shooter, you didn't know how to use it. You asked for all that help. Like, that's a bit fast. Because the first time I shot, I was very hesitant. Even growing up with guns, I was like, I don't know if I really want to do this. And I had, I kid you not, I had one more bullet to put in my magazine before I was like, all right, set target down, I'm ready to go. I see the smoke come past my lane, and I'm like, you see a lot of smoke, but that's awfully weird for that smoke to be traveling this direction and not backwards. So before I can even turn around to let Sean go ahead and load his stuff up before I send my target out there, he turns around and this lady is on the ground. she had put the gun to her head and shot herself.
Mm.
Absolutely gruesome fucking sight for me to see. It, I wanted to throw up. It's I don't care how many times you go to a funeral or whatever. It is not the same. I promise you, it's not the same because they're dressed up. They look nice, regardless of what happened to them. You know, they look the best they can look. This was not the best that somebody could look. Obviously, I did not see this lady's face, and I'm kind of glad about that because it would still fuck me up to this day. But if anybody wants to know about details about like kind of what it seemed, which is kind of weird if you want to, but I will tell you personally in Discord, I will not share that on
Yeah,
podcast. But
yeah.
anyway,
I think we can spare the audience the details.
yeah. So I'm gonna tell the whole story, and then I'll explain like how I feel about it. So yeah, he turns around, he sees her on the ground, and that's when I turn around and I'm like, holy shit! And I'm stunned. I can't stop looking. I should have looked away, but I just couldn't. So we run out the door, and he's like, yo, 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 yo. And the guy that's watching the camera's like, yeah, we're on it right now. Like, we're calling the cops. We're like, all right, cool. So they pull us out. Detectives come. They question us. I'm not going to go into detail too much anymore, but yeah, they question us. Um, the way that we know that she meant to do it was because they separated us to question us because I mean, they got to know. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
We both said the same thing that I just said, and my buddy said, well, the detective and the owner were coming out of the room, like behind the counter. There's a little door, and when they were coming out of that, he heard the detective say like it wasn't an accident, like it wasn't just no freak accident, like something bad happened and she
Hmm.
didn't mean to do it, like yeah. And then he looked at my buddy and was like, oh crap, and then tried to get all quieter about it, which respectfully, but yeah, he still heard him. So yeah, that happened, and then but to lead into the whole communication thing about it, I would have rather wasted my 70, 80, 100. I don't even know how much I spent, and I don't really care how much I spent. I would have rather wasted my money and sat outside and talked to that lady, or just listened to that lady, than have that happen. I
Hmm.
don't know what she was going through, and I mean, as bad as it sounds, it's kind of not my business what she was going through, but I would have rather heard about it than to turn around and see that. Because honestly, I don't even know what to say. Like it fucked me up a lot. Like I said, I want to throw up. Everything was blurry for 2 days, and something about that situation has really opened me up to like be more of kind of what we're doing here.
Hmm.
Because like, yeah, sure, I'm always to help my friend out. If you're going through something, hit me up, whatever. But something about that was just like, bro, like it's actually serious. Like a lot more serious than it just being, oh, it's serious. Like I said, I would have wasted my money to go sit outside and talk to this lady. I would have, if she was willing to do that and was upset about some money, I would have paid her so she didn't lose out on money. Like that's how I feel about it. So like
Yeah.
communication, like definitely a big thing. That's again, that's why like after that day, it's I don't know, it like woke something up inside of me where I'm just like, bro, I will help whoever, wherever, I don't care. Like,
Yeah, because I mean, I mean, we all know there's people that struggle with, thoughts of suicide and thoughts of depression every day. And well, first of all, I'm gonna go ahead and say I really wish that she would have reached out to someone. It doesn't matter who.
anyone.
Um,
I mean, again, we're not licensed therapists or anything,
no, no,
but
but at the same
we
time, right?
can't get Trump though.
Right, we're all humans at the end of the day, and we all experience the same emotions, whether sometimes it feels like you are completely alone. And second of all, I want to say, I mean, I'm sorry that you had to go through that and witness that because not only is it a horrible tragic event for the person involved and their family, but anybody that is, I mean, to put it bluntly, left to pick up whatever remains, you know,
Right.
or to just be
And,
there and witness it or hear about it is a horrible
right.
thing that nobody should ever have to go through.
And I mean, that honestly, because you mentioned like her family and everything, like I hate to think that the fact that maybe she had no family, that it was just her, you know.
I mean, that is
I
a
hate to think
possibility,
that,
you
and
know.
it's a possibility. So I hate to think that, but you know,
But I think this is the reason why I wanted you to kind of start with this. This is a great example of, you know, we've talked about good and bad communication, and we'll dive deeper into some more examples of that. But this is an example of where you aren't necessarily communicating verbally, right? Because prior to this, prior to your experience, there was probably a lot of signs that other people could have noticed and could have, you know,
and
picked up on.
also the thing is too is everybody behind that counter, everybody that works there, has to be trained and
Yes,
certified
yes.
and looking for those red flags. And the guy behind the counter was really beating himself up because he was like, "I see no red flags. She didn't steer me wrong. She
Hmm.
came in, said this and that. Like nothing felt off. Like he was really beating himself up about it because like in a way, I don't know exactly, but I feel like in a way he could get in trouble for the fact that that happened and he was the one that rented out the, you know, firearm. But I also
Yeah.
heard the boss come up to him and assure him like it's not your fault, like you did your job, like you said you did not see any red flags, like you know you're good, like let's just deal with what we have to deal with you. And and that's look right there, a form of good communication right there. The guy was beating himself up, you know, and the boss was like, "Hey, it's okay, calm down. Like you're good. You did your job. You said you didn't see red flags. We're gonna take your word for it. We're
Hmm.
gonna look at the cameras if we have to, but you're good."
And that's unfortunately, it's a harsh truth, but that is a big part of dealing with those, you know, hidden ailments, especially when it comes to, well, mainly when it comes to mental health, because you don't necessarily always see those red flags, right?
No,
Sometimes it takes people years of training, whether in, you know, practice to be able to pick up on someone's social cues to know when they're you know, inside they're screaming for help, but outside they may seem perfectly fine. They may seem like it's just another day,
no,
you know, and me personally, this is the first time that I've ever heard of anything happening um this close to home. You know what I mean? And I mean for you,
yeah,
I can only imagine what you've had to mentally deal with since then.
yeah. I mean, like, and you know, I hate to say this phrase on podcast, but for me, not for her, I'm gonna clarify that for me, it is what it is. I'm gonna deal with it.
Mhm.
I mean, it still kind of fucks me up, but like, I mean, there's not much I can do about it now, and that sucks to say, but you know,
I mean,
I don't,
realistically, right? If say I mean, you yourself didn't even see any of the red flags, if there were any,
um,
you know? So
exactly.
the just the way that everything went from what it seems like you've told me, both on here and in person, it seems like there wasn't a whole lot you could have done.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, it was too late.
yeah. She had already made up her mind, and that you know, I hate to say that, but she made up her mind. So
Yeah.
I, at that point, I don't know if even me communicating with her or even just listening to her would have made the difference. I would like to think it would, but
I mean,
you
yeah,
know,
there's always that hope, right? There's always that hope that
hmm
one more thing that we could have done, like we as humans kind of always live with that. Um,
yeah. And you know, the thing that kind of makes me mad is the way. What if she
It's
did it
true.
home and had nobody? You know?
And the thing about it is, people go and they train with firearms all the time. That doesn't necessarily mean they want to own one or
Right.
could afford to own one, you know?
Which means they want to see four things.
Yeah. I mean, I've known numerous people, first time shooters that have rented weapons or have come with me or for other friends that obviously, they've never done it before. They want to know. They want to know what it's like. They want to know how to handle one, stuff like that. But
And some of those people don't want to go.
yeah, a lot of them don't own a gun, and for that reason, right? They're not experienced with it. They don't feel
Okay.
comfortable around them yet, which is
That's fine.
fine. That's
That's
completely
fine.
okay. But I mean, I would like to, wherever they're at, give condolences to the families, um, and to everyone else who had been affected by this woman's passing. Um, this isn't an easy thing for either of us to talk about. Like
Yeah.
it really isn't. It's very difficult. But
Like this. Like this.
yeah, but at the same time, right, these conversations need to be had. It's important that this doesn't get it's important that we use this as a lesson, you know, to be able to take something from this. As bad as it sucks and as bad as horrible as it is, and it truly is
Yeah.
very horrible.
I mean, I find that it's just like even still that it doesn't fuck me up nearly as much as it used to, but it
Hmm.
still helps to at least talk about it. And that's just for any situation, regardless of what it is. You know, talk about it. Talk about your highs. Talk about your lows.
Yeah.
It is, it's, it's the best feeling to talk about it sometimes.
Hmm. It becomes people don't realize what the kind of weight that some of these experiences carry. And sometimes it is a very heavy, almost physical weight that affects your body.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sure that whatever she was dealing with was weighing her down a lot, and she thought that this was the only way to get rid of it.
Now, speaking of weight, I will not mention a name, but I know somebody who is kind of been stressed out recently about some things that they've been going through. And they said something to me, and I get why they won't say something to some other people. I'm gonna try to make that as like hard to figure out as possible. But that's for their own reasons, and I understand that. But come to me, that's fine. I've told this person, you know, go ahead. So I texted them the other day while I was at work, and I will read this word for word. Uh, the first sentence is in all capital letters. Friendly reminder to not stress yourself out so much. You don't have to carry any weight by yourself. Keep doing great things. Love you. I know you're still dealing with some things. You don't want to talk about it with me. That's fine. But I know you are, and that's okay. But bro, if you want to put it on me, if you want to put some of it on me, go ahead. Just definitely don't have to carry that alone.
Well, to whoever
Okay.
that's to, I hope that they do take your advice, and I hope they do understand that a support system is there for you to share that weight, right? If you're constantly carrying, let's give it a literal context, right? You're constantly carrying 100 pounds, and then you just all of a sudden you develop 100 different friends that carry a pound for you.
Right.
It makes life so much easier, and that's the whole
But
point.
I want to say that you're not getting that 100 friends to carry that 1 pound if you're not ever saying nothing.
Yeah, speaking up is
You know?
very, very important. Or at
Yeah.
least putting yourself in a position where someone can see what you're going through, even if you don't want to verbally communicate it, right? And
Right.
if I could have talked to that woman prior to this, I would, or prior to that happening, I would have told her the same thing. Put yourself in a position, if you don't want to talk about it, put yourself around people that see you for you and have and
Right.
notice these changes.
Exactly.
Because I mean, for example, right, when me and you are talking or we're hanging out or whatever, you can visibly see a difference in the way that I act. And I don't talk about my problems verbally. I don't. But
But I see it.
I do show them. I'm not very great at hiding body language. Not a lot of people are. And sometimes sometimes it's better to just feel that pain for just a little bit and then get rid of it instead of not feeling anything at all.
Well, and
Being numb is not a solution to anything.
and I don't want to say this is for everybody because some people it's different. Like maybe they actually do need more than just a friend to talk to and listen to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I can say, like, especially for both of us, that that hour, 2 hour, 30 minute, 5 minute, whatever, however long the conversation is about, hey, I'm going through it. Like, like especially for us, like I said, like it makes a big difference. Like at the end of the conversation, you're like, yeah, bro, you're right. Like I
Like,
should do these things, you know?
yeah, because, it, and that's the thing, it doesn't change your situation, right? You're still in the same situation you were when you started the conversation, right? But you have a different mindset now because you know someone else understands, or at the very least has tried to understand what you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
And that in itself, for a lot of different people, including myself, takes a lot of that stress, that anxiety, that weight off your shoulders.
That reassurance makes a very big difference
Exactly. Having the
regardless of
reassurance, it, yeah, having someone behind you every step of the way is a tremendous help.
yeah.
Like I cannot express that enough. It is a tremendous help for
And
having a good support system, even if it's only one person.
yeah, and I mean, I can understand that, like, taking that first step to actually even say anything is probably going to be the hardest thing that you have to do.
Yeah.
But, you know, just just like hitting up your friend or your therapist or whatever, and you're like, I'm really struggling right now.
Hmm.
That is that is the first step. Like, I know that's probably the hardest step, but that I mean, sometimes that's all it takes because if Steven calls me and he's like, "Man, I'm going through it," and it took him all the courage he had to say that, my next question is, "Well, what's going on?" And that's good communication right there. There's an example of good communication. What's going on? Like,
Yeah, help me
tell me,
understand what you're going through,
right?
you know.
And and if Steven hits me with the I don't know how to say it. Well, like tell me, just tell me the things that happened. Like
Hmm.
like, oh, well, when I went to work, my boss was telling me this and that, like, because it could be a deeper thing than just your boss told you this and that.
Yeah.
But
A lot of the
you
times,
started with, what made you feel the way you feel right now.
hmm a lot of the times, people tend to cover up deeper issues with things that may seem like it's the problem, but there's always, or not always, but there's sometimes an underlying cause or some type of trigger or something like that.
I mean,
Like,
I can't think of like a situation, but there's definitely been a time where I'm just like, where I've hit you up and I'm like, well, this made me mad and that made me mad, and you're like, bro, is it really that? Like, I think it
yeah.
actually is this, and you were right. It was that.
Hmm.
Like I
And
said, I can't think of an example of just how much we've actually talked about. But
well, actually, I can think of an example, and it's something that you had recently shared in the Discord. If you don't mind me talking about it.
it's public. It's under my name.
Okay.
I didn't spontaneously confess that stuff.
Well, there was an instance, I don't remember um, when you were referencing your father-in-law, and I had made the point of, well, maybe it's because having a father figure in your life is difficult for you to understand because
It's what
your
I
father
mean.
was never there.
I mean, and unless you're right, but from what I remember, I had admitted that first. But continue. I could be wrong. Could be wrong.
I don't remember what it was. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it was something to do with your father-in-law, and we got on that topic. It could have been you, it could have been me, either way, right?
Mhm.
Um, it's a good example of an underlying cause and having to deal with those problems currently, right?
Yeah,
A lot of the stuff that we go through nowadays is either self-inflicted or it stems from childhood trauma.
yeah,
And if you don't deal with those little kinks that you had when you were a kid, those little things that you have to iron out and work out and accept, because a lot of people don't accept it. Um, if you can't deal with those or you struggle to deal with those, then a lot of times it's going to be difficult for you to go out and go throughout your daily life, and you'll have other issues, and it'll stem from things like that.
right. And speaking of my uh my confession there about my father figure and my father-in-law, I can give two perfect examples from one story of good communication and bad communication. Because on our wedding day, like I said, if anybody's in the Discord, go read my confession. I don't want to say it again because it's a lengthy one. But uh, but yeah, on our wedding day, I had pulled my father-in-law to the side, and it was just me and him. I mean, there's a lot of people around us, but just me and him in this conversation. And I wanted to thank him for being the father that I didn't have, showing me what a father is, and example of good communication. Thank you for doing this and that. Like you don't have to do that for me. Like, and what I was getting out of him was not in my mind what I wanted him to say, and you're not gonna always get what you want. But
Hmm.
he was like, well, I just try to look out for y'all and make sure you're good. But he was also kind of cutting me off, which that's neither here nor there. That's just how he is as a person. He
Hmm.
doesn't mean it. And I look at this man in his face and I go, shut up. Actually listen to me. Bad communication. I was getting mad. I'm like, look, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not
Well,
trying to,
I think
trying
that's
to clear up
both
the room.
parties as well, right? It's not just on you, that's both parties. That
Yeah,
goes
but
back to what we were saying about hearing versus listening.
you know my father-in-law. You've met him in person. You know how he is.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Kind of old school.
yeah. He can't really help himself when it comes to like cutting you off. Sometimes he doesn't mean it. He will apologize for it when you tell him like, hey, I didn't like that. He will apologize, but yeah. Needless to say, you know, I got mad at him and I was like, dude, I want to tell you that I don't know what a father figure is. So when you tell me these things and you do these things and you're like, you know, get get your shit together, get it in check. You need to do this, you need to do that,
Hmm.
and I get mad. It's not because I want to get mad. It's because I don't know how to take it when you tell me to do things as a father figure. Because like, yeah, saying it to your daughter is one thing. You raised her, but I've never had a masculine like figure come to me besides my mother, and that's very feminine, but come to me and be like, dude, you're fucking up
Hmm.
here. So I never knew how to take it, and I still struggle with it to this day. But I tell him all the time, like I really do appreciate everything you do for me. Like I know I still get mad at you, but sometimes I'm gonna make this a little bit of a lighter note. Sometimes he does annoy the fuck out of me, and I want to choke that man out.
Yeah.
Love him to death, though. Love him to death. He means so well for me. He has done more than I could ever ask for. He does things that I don't even ask for. And like I said, I still to this day do not know how to take a father figure. Just never had it. So
Not to sort of make this about you, because I think I know the answer to this question, but just for the viewers, how do you think that conversation that you had with him affected your all's relationship? And also, well, we'll start with that. We'll start with that. I have another question though.
I think from his perspective, it's hard to say, but because he is a bit of an airhead, when I started working with him, I had talked to him about that again, and he was like, "I don't remember that." But also, it's a wedding. He probably drank a little bit, so and he doesn't really drink a lot, but he probably did. I don't know. But also a whirlwind of emotions on a wedding night. His daughter is getting married. He's giving his daughter away
He,
to
he-
another man.
I was going to say he's literally giving
So
his daughter away. So yeah.
right. So from his perspective, and I don't mean to talk bad about him. Like I said, he's an airhead. I don't mean to talk bad about him. He just is. I work with him. I know. But from his perspective, I can't really say. I mean, it has definitely made it a lot better, especially now that like I'm not 17 anymore, and we did not get married when I was 17. But we've been together since before I was 17. So,
Hmm.
but uh, but yeah, like I think it's a lot better than when I was a teenager. At least for me, it's a lot easier to like take the things that he does say to me, even if it does make me mad, and I'm just like, okay, that's my no father figure problem in me. That's my daddy issues in me. So
Okay. Well, you
I
kind
feel
of
like
answered the second question then.
we definitely have a lot better relationship than what it used to be because I wouldn't say it was terrible, like he didn't like me, but he used to tell my wife that he sees himself in me when he was my age, which I know the truth, you are way off. But uh, but I get it, like fathers are gonna be fathers, so like good fathers are gonna be good fathers. Let me rephrase that.
Right.
But I feel like if I had not said that, if I had not ever got that off of my chest, no matter how many times I say it to him, I think I would still struggle with the fact that it's hard to have a father
Hmm.
in general.
Well, I'm definitely proud of you for having that conversation with him. I know at the time it probably felt like a necessity, or um it felt like it was maybe something that you just had to do, but
Yeah, and I still do it. Like I still tell them, like I struggle with it. And I don't mean it. I'm
hmm
sorry. Like, but I wouldn't say it necessarily felt like a necessity. It was more just like, you know what? Like I realize my wrongs. I I know he doesn't take it to heart because at the end of the day, he's still just being a father to his daughter, which in turn includes the man who married her. But like it's something that I myself mentally and in my heart needed to do so that he knows that like I don't always mean to tell you like fuck you.
right. And on that note, I can definitely relate because not so much anymore, but when I was younger and I was a lot more hard-headed, I also didn't really have a father figure in my life. And so when another type of figure like that would come around and, be with my mom, whatever, a lot of the times they got pushed away because of the fact of like, well, I had this mindset of, well, if I didn't have one then, well, I don't need one now. And I realize now, obviously, um, it was a defense mechanism to not get hurt again. Because I mean, the last time I seen my father was in a court case when I was 16 over custody of me and my sister.
Yeah,
And having that experience made me kind of realize, well, you've never been there for me, so why are you there for me now? Or why would you want to be?
even
And
trying.
yeah, why are you even trying to be? Because I know, and it greatest intuition in the world, I guess. I know that I knew at the time that after that conversation that we had, I wasn't going to see or hear from him again. And
Yeah,
so in my mind, being a young kid, I was like, well, what's the point anyway? And
right.
I thinking back at it now, um, it was a big mistake on my part because I could have, if I knew then what I know now, I could have probably pushed for him to be in my life a little more.
You give them the chance.
And yeah,
Give
and
them
give him more of
time
a
to think.
chance because I don't know what had happened between him and my mom. I don't know um
Right.
I don't know any of the details, right? I was just a young kid, so it was it was very naive of me to just push him away as my biological father and then from that time on continue to push any other male figure in my life away when realistically I should have been embracing what little things they could have taught me. Um, I didn't have to enjoy their company. That's never a requirement for anyone. I mean, I didn't even really have to listen to them if I didn't want to. I mean, being a kid, you kind of have to, but I didn't have to take their advice or anything. That was a choice, but I just never even gave it the chance most of the time because I just I didn't want to be abandoned again, right? And there's an underlying cause, and another good example of bad communication, abandonment,
Right.
right? Which we can throw that up in the topics too. That's a big thing I know a lot of people struggle with.
See that your situation with your father, that's something that we definitely have a difference on. Because for me, it wasn't they went to court for me like twice, my mom said, but that was well before I was even old enough to understand what was going on.
Hmm.
And when she tells me about it, I'm like, well, he left when I was three. Like y'all split up, and that's one thing, but you decided to not be a father. But then you come in, and you're like, well, I want to get custody, but you don't have a job, you don't have a house, you have nothing. So of course you lose that. Then you try it again in the same situation. Of course you lose that. But the difference for me is I gave him the chance when I was 13, 14, and I gave him before that I had given him a chance when I was like 12, and every time it was always why does your mom keep you from seeing me? Why does your mom is, oh, I'm tired of hearing it, bro.
Hmm.
You're talking so badly about the woman who raised me, bro, who continues to raise me to this day as a 27, almost 28-year old. So why do I even have respect for you anymore? It's not even about me or you, and it's not even about like giving you the chance anymore, or what's the word I'm looking for? Like not like making up for it, but it'll come to me later. But like letting you have that chance anymore because every time I gave you that chance, you ruined it by talking bad about my mom, making it about her. No, the two times I gave you the chance was because I told my right, I'll give him the chance, and she never once tried to keep me from you. Yeah, I'm talking directly to you now. She never once tried to keep me from you, except for one time when uh, you were like, "Well, I got a house, I got a room for him," and she was like, "Okay," so we went and checked it out. She was like, "All right, you can have him for the week," and then come Friday, you didn't want to give me back. So you don't have custody. That's kidnapping, bro. My mom
Hmm.
called the cops. So like, kind of in a way, I don't really have respect for you anymore because everything you do is wrong.
Right. And I think that we can definitely relate in some ways. I know the situations aren't the same, but it seems to me in both of our stories there was a lot of bad communication, either with us as people and the other party, or two other parties that we had no control over.
Right.
Um,
Which, yeah, you're right. Like as a child, you don't have control over that.
exactly. And you also don't know how to manage your emotions the best. So
Right.
sometimes they can be a little bit irrational, which you learn to deal with them as you grow up. You learn to develop uh you learn to become more emotionally intelligent as you get older, especially when you do deep reflections of yourself and you want to become that better person. You learn better communication, you learn better listening skills. You take the
Right,
time to slow down and think about what you say before you say it.
right. And I mean, even if it's a day at a time, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes you people think that you stay the same person your entire life, and that's not true. Every single day you change just a little bit, whether you get
Right,
a day older, or maybe you dropped a bad habit, or maybe you learned a lesson yesterday that you're now applying today. Um,
right. You
we're
know what?
never the same people day to
I
day.
was, I don't want to say the, can't you can't really call them a band, it's just two people, but you know who I'm talking about. I was listening to them at work today, and I guess it's the chorus, because like some songs don't have a chorus for them, um, is when life gets hard, keep on marching on. Something like, even if you have to push the car.
Hmm.
So I need to look up the lyrics.
I
I
know
need
what
to
song you're
look up
talking
what
about,
song.
yeah.
But you know what I'm talking about, yeah. Like, and I and coming from that group, if anybody knows what song I'm talking about, coming from that group and the music that they put out, like, holy crap, for them to say
Mhm.
that, you know, especially with their name being what their name is.
Yeah,
So
sorry, no free promo. Um, but
yeah,
that is to say, right, like music is a big way for us to relate to each other. And
oh yeah,
it's also a beautiful way to communicate to each other. Um, I think music is a very underrated way of communication.
oh yeah. And I mean, that can also be bad and good communication, you know.
It can, yeah, it can, because depending on the
But
music that you listen to and the lyrics you're constantly bombarding into your head, you're gonna start to kind of change and become whatever they say, right?
and you know what though, the funny thing is it works a little bit differently for me. Like when I'm dealing with some shit, like just mentally, where like I don't really need to tell nobody because I know it's gonna be all right, kind of deal. You know, like I'm just not feeling 100% today,
Hmm.
kind of deal. Then I listen to certain music. Yeah, like I'll be listening to them or some other sad stuff, and for some reason it always helps because it's the fact of hearing that somebody else is dealing with something
Yeah.
probably worse or the same.
Yeah,
You know,
somebody else out there understands how you feel.
and
That's
then not only that, but like when I listen to those two specific people, you know how their music goes. It's there's one like really deep, sad, one that's just like playing hell yeah, let's go ride around the city and have a good night kind of song. You know,
hmm
it's like when you're just letting it play and you're going through some stuff, you're like really listening to the song, and then you just kind of zone out. The next song comes on, you done forgot about what you were upset about today because now you're just like, hey,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And I mean, I can't stress enough how much music, and I could see it in you too, how much music has helped both of us throughout our
Oh,
lives, especially
um,
when there's times that you don't want to talk to people and you know that there's an artist out there that has a song or a quote or an interview, whatever it may be. But there's another artist out there that you can listen to and zone out, and it I don't know, it just makes you realize like, hey, you're not alone.
you know what? I'm giving one person specifically free promo here because the man deserves it. Let's be honest. But if
I know who
anybody
you're gonna say.
listens, if anybody, yes, you know what I'm talking about. If anybody listens to NF, Nathan Fierenstein, is that how you say his last name? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
NF, look it up. Look him up. Everybody's heard him. He's been on the radio a couple of times. Listen to him. The songs that play on the radio are not the songs that you need to hear. They are the songs you want to hear.
Yeah.
Because the
They're
songs that you need to hear are pure art. Pure art. I don't even care if you're like, oh, he's not a good rapper and this and that. It's not about that. It's
Listen,
not about
listen
that.
to the lyrics, and if the song doesn't hit you, play another song, because I'm positive there's a song that he has made that has something in there that will hit you differently. I remember specifically one instance where I had just gone through a, a really, really bad breakup, and I had just started a new job, and it was hard for me to see the good things in life, even though I just started this great job. It was a great opportunity. And I remember one day, I was there, and this particular job, I worked alone, and it was at night. So everybody was asleep. All my friends were asleep. I couldn't really call a
I
whole lot
was
of people.
honest.
You was not asleep, but we were actually both working night shift
Yeah,
that, but I was there alone, and it was an instance where I just didn't really want to talk to anybody, and uh, I would put on one of his albums, and I would just let it play all night. And an album isn't 8 hours long, so I'm repeating a bunch of songs, and I'm kind of
right.
going through it, and it made me understand, like, yeah, there's somebody out here. He may not understand what exactly I'm going through, to the detail, but he feels it, right? Like, if that makes sense. He and it helped me a lot. It helped me get through a lot.
Right.
Him amongst many other artists, not just, him, but
And that's also kind of the thing about him too, like being an independent artist. Not to say that some of the other people we listen to aren't independent, because I mainly listen to independent people, but he is definitely one of those independent artists that is like big on the communicating to his fans that like I'm here for y'all because of y'all.
hmm
Like this music is my outlet, but also your outlet.
yeah.
So like if it saves your life, if it makes you feel better, if if it makes you, you know, feel anything, then like, I did my job kind of deal,
Yeah.
because in some of his music, I mean, we have the same similar situations.
hmm Yeah.
Like yeah, of course, like every other artist, they've got those songs where it's, oh yeah, this was a great song. I'm feeling really good. But there's those ones where you're listening to the lyrics and you're definitely like, holy crap, like it sounds like he is rapping about what I'm dealing with.
Yeah. Or talking
So
directly to you, I know
right,
a lot of artists that feel that way. Um, or yeah, it feels that way when you listen to them. And I don't know, man. Like, ever since I started listening to his music, it just hits different. It definitely hits
and
different.
looking at the topics, that what I put in there, very
hmm
last thing, it definitely bleeds into that. That's your comfort zone. You know,
hmm
it's one of your comfort zones. Now, of course, sometimes you need to step out of those, but it's always nice to have those, whether it be video games, music, reading, writing, drawing, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, some type of outlet, right? Like
Right.
you humans are a vessel for thoughts, right? And you can fill yourself with good thoughts or bad thoughts. And regardless of whether they're good or bad, eventually they're gonna come out. So
Right.
figure out a way, or figure out someone that you could be around that can help you find a way to let them out creatively without hurting yourself or without hurting other people. I know a big thing nowadays, I mean, it started quite a while back, was I don't remember exactly what they're called. They call them crash out rooms, where
Yeah.
you
The
throw a
rage
helmet.
rooms.
Yeah, rage rooms. That's what they're. You throw a helmet on, you throw some glasses on, you take a bat, and you just start swinging, right? And you got people there that are making sure that you're okay,
You're
and
doing it safely.
yeah, you're doing it safely, and it's a good outlet for people who have a lot of emotion that don't want to talk about it.
And if you see like videos from that, a lot of people use like they let you play music there through the radio or
Yeah.
on your phone, what have you, like because that's people's outlet. They have a lot of emotion that they want to let loose, and the music music that they're listening to is helping them calm down, but while getting out the frustration or whatever it is they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Because even though it's called a rage room, we know that
It's not
like I
always
have
anger,
heard,
you know?
yeah, I've personally seen videos where somebody was playing a really sad song that I actually do like. I don't remember what it was because it's been a while, but uh, they were playing that and like I think it was like a printer or something that they were destroying. Like halfway through it, they didn't even they barely blink off the face of this thing, and they just started bawling. And the employee walked in there and reassured him, like, it's all right, you're fine. Like,
Hmm.
if you want to sit out and take a breather, do what you got to do. Like, giving them that reassurance, giving them great communication
Yeah.
to let them know that you're not alone.
Just yeah, just sometimes just letting them know that you're there is enough. And uh, I want to touch on the topic. We've been talking about good and bad communication, but we've been talking about it in the verbal and nonverbal sense. But we haven't talked about silence a lot, and I want to dive into that. Um, a lot of the times, or there's been many cases where I see people that used to be really good friends of mine, and we stopped talking for whatever reason. And come to find out, it was because of some way that they had felt. And their mind kind of took the idea and they ran with it. And sometimes it turned out to not be true at all. It was just a feeling that they had created based on an event or something that made them think differently of either me or someone else in the friend group. And so,
Or
I mean, it
themselves.
or themselves, yeah, and it broke the the friendship away.
Right.
And so I think it's important that we use silence as a tool as well, not just not just for, being vindictive or for whatever other reasons. I think it's easy to see in a relationship, particularly like uh what's the word? Like like a domestic like a domestic relationship, right?
Right.
It's easier to see in that because you're with the person every day and you talk to them every day, you wake up with them every day, and once they start to go quiet, if that's not what they're used to or what you're used to, then you're gonna automatically assume, hey, what's wrong? A lot of people they'll come up and say, hey, what's wrong? What happened today? Whatever.
And sometimes you want to be first up.
Yeah, sometimes you know that they can't, right?
Plus, some friend. So you were saying, seeing friends like go quiet, stop hitting you up, whatever. Like, and do not take what I say, what I'm about to say, like very literally about bad versus good communication. Sometimes the quote unquote bad communication is good communication because if I was to stop hitting up Steven because of something that he did or does that I don't like, I, I'm leaving him wondering, like, what? Like, what is going on? Why is he not hitting me up? Sometimes
Yeah.
you gotta tell him, like, hey, man, I just don't like you.
Yeah, because I
That's what
mean,
I mean
other
by like quote unquote bad communication. Because you're saying a negative thing, but dude, I don't like you because you do this. That's it.
yeah, yeah, like silence can be just as bad too, right? It's not just a warning or
Right.
a reaction to someone else's experience. It could be the fact that there's emotions left unspoken between two people. And I myself have experienced this a lot here recently, and I'm not going to go too deep into detail for the sake of the other person and myself, but this particular person was supposed to communicate with me about something that had to do with future plans. And they were struggling very, very hard. And I'm sure that it was hard. I have no doubt that it wasn't hard for them. But because of that, and because of maybe a loss for words or not wanting to make me feel some type of way, they went quiet. And every time I questioned them about it, trying to sort of probe, not being really harassing them about it, but just trying to get answers or at the very least a closure to the situation, I was always left kind of talking to myself. And so that was an instance where I had to take the silence and realize that this is the answer. This is
Right.
this is the answer that they don't want to say. And so I had sort of come to that realization of, hey, this is where it's going to go, and it's just how it is. If you don't if you don't say something, silence is also an answer, you know.
Right.
Whether you do something or you don't do something, you still have made a choice, right? Like it's still a choice and it's a very conscious choice and you have to think about that when you're communicating with someone. You have to think about um what and how this other person is gonna feel. And
Right.
I know a lot of people don't like to think about other people's feelings, especially when you're so wrapped up in your own. And it's it's part of it's part of communicating with another person. I know we're saying that a lot, but it's the truth. It's just how
Yeah.
we go back
And
and forth.
but sometimes, like you also said, sometimes like the silent answer isn't like the silence isn't always bad because like especially with like me and my wife, like sometimes she'll say some stuff and I won't say nothing and then she'll get a little irritated and it's like, but I don't have to say anything. Like I heard you, I got it. Okay. Like
Hmm.
we're sitting right next to each other, you know. Not everything needs an answer. And she's I mean still struggling with the fact that I do that, but and I mean I could do better on it because I know that she wants an answer even if it wasn't a question. But like, you know, if you're like, take the trash out, I don't need to say anything. You know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna go do it.
Yeah, I think some type of acknowledgement is very, very important because when you
Yeah.
when you leave someone in the dark, it makes the person's mind wander.
Like especially for some people.
Yeah, like
But it's
a lot of people probably struggle with high anxiety or I mean, especially if you're watching this podcast, right? Like you probably struggle with some type of depression, anxiety, your thoughts constantly racing. If you leave people in the dark, it's going to make them jump to conclusions. It's just kind of something that we do. It's
yeah,
hard to train
especially
yourself not to.
especially in case like he's like
Hmm.
so he's probably not gonna do it.
Yeah, it's the automatic assumption that they're being ignored, right? And even if they aren't, even if that's not the truth, um,
Right.
even if it's not the objective truth, subjectively to them, that's what they feel. So,
I
right.
just personally feel like some things don't need an answer when they're not questions.
Hmm.
You know, when they're more a request or a demand even, I okay, I'm 2 feet from you. I heard you.
Yeah, and that's
But that's
that's
just
what I'm saying. Like
you know,
even acknowledgement can be anything, right? It could be verbal, nonverbal, behavioral
right.
act. Just you. If you heard her and you go and take out the trash and she notices that, and then okay, he answered or he
Understood.
acknowledged what you did or what you asked of him.
Which and in her case, because I don't know that she does deal with a lot, but in in that case, she has got a lot better. She doesn't always require an answer, especially for that specific example. She doesn't always get like require or get irritated when I don't answer because now it is instead of turned into like I need you to take the trash out and then look for an answer. it's like next time you go outside, when you do it, and if I don't say nothing, I heard, she's like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Next time he goes outside, I'll just toss it at him again, just in case he forgot.
And that's not to
You know?
say, right? Like these are examples that work for this specific relationship. That's not
Right.
to say that you should just go around ignoring everyone, okay? Like that's
Yeah.
or the
And you
perception
don't.
of ignoring people, right? Like that's not always a good way.
I mean, take the trash.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure there's somebody out there right now that has to take their trash out, so I think you should probably go do that. But yeah, that's another good example of different types of communication because it's not just uh
Right.
and the struggles that we have to deal with between personalities as well, right? Because some people crave that immediate, hey, this is what I'm gonna do, and then a response. And then
Right.
some people don't can't do that or just don't do that. That's just not who they are.
I would say the biggest struggle with that specifically is like for me and her, we grew up in two completely different worlds.
Hmm.
Like I wouldn't say I had it terrible, but she definitely had it better than I did. She went well off. She's not rich, but it was a little easier because her father, me and her father doing everything he could,
Hmm.
And that's not to say he didn't struggle, but that's a big thing too. Like the way her father raised her versus the way my mother raised me. Because with the whole thing of me not replying sometimes is I'm you know me growing up and you lived in my house, like sometimes I would reply to my mom and she would get mad and like don't say nothing else, boy. So it kind of got beat into me about like not physically beat, but beat into me about not everything requires a remark afterwards. So it's a little bit normalized to me to not always answer when they're not
Hmm.
questions. But for her, it was, I said something. What are you gonna say? You know,
Yeah.
I need to know you heard me, kind of deal. My
Hmm.
mom was completely different. Like I said, like I know you heard me. Don't say nothing else.
Hmm.
So
Which explains why it's so easy for you to give those types of responses versus a verbal response.
and I would say take that into consideration when whether it be your friends, your partner, your parents, your cousins, whoever, take that into consideration about, how they were raised, the things that they dealt with versus how you were raised, the things that you deal with or
Hmm.
dealt with before you just, assume like, oh, the silence was a bad thing,
Yeah.
because it
And
could just be normalized to them.
I think it's important for us to clarify, right? We have only been around a certain um, amount of different types of people, right? We have not experienced the world and all of its people. It's it's I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it is an extremely difficult task to say that you've experienced all different types of personalities. And if you
Well,
have, then great. I hope you learned a lot from it, but don't take what we say and try to apply it to everyone because it's not necessarily always going to work with everyone. You have to understand their baseline as a person. You have to
right,
understand who they are to some degree and how they're going to react because you know if from where I'm from, right? If where I grew up, if you didn't respond to your mom, okay, it's like what the fuck, and
right,
and your mom is probably going to come into your room and you're probably going to be in some type of trouble. But I know people
well,
who can respond to their parents or their significant others. That's the word I was looking for. Significant others. But
yeah, so
if you can respond to, those people like that, it's not always going to be the same with everyone that you meet. So you have to.
it's like everything.
Yeah.
That's the thing when it comes to communication is being how that person tends to communicate and how they take the communication from you. Like, you kind of have to balance it out and figure out, like, how to do it, what to do.
Yeah, because I'm not gonna respond to Alex and communicate with Alex the same way that I communicate with my friends at work or my bosses or the guy
Right.
at the gas station, right? Like it's always going to be different and you have to understand that. You also have to
Yeah.
understand that like your responses are only taken at face value because people don't
Right.
know unless they're close to you, people don't know what you go through on a daily basis. So the way that you respond to the world is going to be taken as however you respond to it. They're not going to know the context. So think
It's
about that next time someone says have a good day and you mean mug them, you know,
right.
because they're just doing the nice thing.
Yeah.
They don't know what you're going through. They're at the very least trying to help, or maybe
Yeah.
it's just in their nature.
And I'm wondering before as you were talking about like your gas station employee or whatever. But you know the one I go to all the time. I'm a loyal customer. I go to one gas station
He
all the time.
he is a very loyal customer. I can speak for
Yes. I love my gas station. I
that.
love my gas station employees. But I
Anyway,
was
yeah.
sitting there, I was sitting there and it was I worked there briefly for like 3 months, if that. But I was in there one day, and the guy behind the counter was actually the guy who trained me. So I kind of got to know him real well. So like, yeah, I really liked the guy. He was cool. But a guy came in and was giving him an attitude. He was in line with an attitude, saying it was taking forever and this and that. And the whole time, I'm just like, bro, if it's that big a deal, like go somewhere else. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
He gets up to the counter and he has an attitude with the guy at the counter. And I was a bit out of line for this, but I got tired of hearing it. And I was just like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, go somewhere else if you're that mad about it. And the guy behind the counter was like, no, you don't have to do that. And I'm like, no, dude, like, seriously, you have no right to talk to him. However, just because you're having a bad day, bro, like, get over it. And, you know how I am. He gave an attitude to me, and it was a different story at that point. He gave me an attitude. I don't care if you're going through it at that point, you know? I was still out of line for even saying anything, but I was just tired of hearing it. I get you're probably stressed out, you're mad at the world, but don't let it out on him, and don't give me an attitude because now I'm pushing all this serious stuff that we talk about out the window. Because now I feel like you've come to me in a threatening manner, and I don't stand for that.
Hmm.
And then he walked out, and the guy behind the counter he was like, you really didn't have to do that, bro. I just took it as he was having a bad day and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, but that's the thing, bro. He didn't know if you were having a bad day or not. What if that was the last straw for you? You know?
And
He's like, I get it,
you also
but
got to
still,
think
like,
what if that was the last straw for him too, you know? And that was his only way to communicate it was through being
right?
what
Which,
appeared to be a prick, but
yeah,
you know.
which it's I can confidently say it wasn't the last straw for him. But yeah, again, I was out of line for even talking to him the way I was talking to him because I could have been a lot more understanding. But it's also one of those things where I was just like, dude, I'm tired of hearing it. I've been in line for 10 minutes. I've heard you complain for 10 minutes. Like, it's not that serious, dude. It's not.
Hmm.
You know.
And I think this is I think you as the viewer should challenge yourself, right? Be aware of how you feel when you go throughout the day, especially when you go into more public places and you're interacting with people that you don't know on a daily basis because your family can put up with it. Your family loves you. That's that's kind of
Right.
that's the thing. But people who don't know you, they don't know your baseline. They don't know who you are and how you act, and they don't know any of that. So when you go out into public and you show these emotions that may or may not be appropriate for the setting, you have to think about what it's doing to the other person as far as their perception of you, right?
And
Because you could be the greatest person in the world, right? But you go into one place that you've never been and you just so happen to be having a bad day and you start taking it out on someone, and then all of a sudden that cashier, that employee, that whatever that person now thinks of you as like, damn, I don't want to have to deal with him anymore or her or whatever. I don't want to have to be around this person anymore.
Right.
And so it's important to be cognizant of how you feel and how you express that to the world. I know a lot of people have this idea of like it doesn't matter what people think of me and at the end of the day it doesn't, right? It really only matters what you think of yourself. But
Never care what people think about you.
perceptions do matter. They do matter. As much as
Yeah.
people don't want to hear that. Because for example, right, like I can't go to work every day and be this, just shitty person every day. I can't.
Right.
I work with the public.
Especially in your line of work.
Exactly. I work with the public. I cannot do this. It's just I just can't. It's not good for me. It's not good for them. It just isn't, right?
It's
Networking is
not
very
good for
important.
business.
Exactly. And that goes for all different types of not just work, but um people that you want to meet, right? I have a friend right now that um me and him we went to lunch today actually. This is a really good example. We went to lunch today and me and him talking, we've known each other for a while. It's easy for us to talk back and forth. But we had gotten on the topic of relationships and I was like, it's been a while. Or you seen anybody? How's your life doing? Whatever. And he was like, nah, man, I was like, well, you got to put yourself out there sometimes. And he was like, well, it just doesn't ever work out like that for me. And I was in my mind, I should have told him, but hindsight's always 2020. I should have told him, well, maybe it's the way that the other person or the other people are looking at you,
Right.
because you could be missing out on the opportunity of a lifetime because of a feeling that you have that about something that happened like 10 years ago, you know, and you're still dealing with it. So think about this is sort of my challenge to the viewers. Think about how you feel in the moment before you say something rash, before you act in a way that is a little maybe out of character.
Right.
Because those moments, I mean, they really can change your life for better or
Exactly.
worse, you know?
Your first impression is always the lasting impression, you know,
It is. It is.
because even even in a sense of um, like let's say me and Steven, for example, we this is not true, but let's say we met at at the skate park because like we used to go there a lot. And the first time I seen this guy ride past me, he just looked really fucking mad. I was like, that guy. And then now we're the best friends. But I will always remember that when he rode past me, he looked mad as hell. And I said, fuck that guy. Which, again, that is not a true story. That is not how we met. But that first impression is always a lasting
Yeah.
impression. So just remember that.
A good example, right? I've gone to a few different places for business and in each place I go, I try to be the most authentic me that I can be because I don't want to start work at this place and then when I leave, however long, it takes me to complete whatever I have to do or whatever. When I leave, they have a different impression of me. I want to, from the beginning to the end, I want to be not necessarily the same person because you grow, you learn, you get better. But I want them to look at me in a more positive light because regardless of what people say, when other people look at you and they have a good perception of you, it makes you feel better as a person. It
Right.
doesn't really matter what they think in the sense of,
Oh, yeah.
okay, I'm not going to see this person anymore or whatever. But when you're dealing with people that you're going to be associated with for any length of time, not just one occurrence, you want people to look back and be like, man, that was a good person. That was a good
Right.
guy. That was a good girl, whatever.
For me, I really couldn't care less what people think about me. But like you're saying, like with for work, it's primarily older people. Like I'm one of three young people that one of four, sorry, one of four young people that work in that job, and it's nice to know that I talked to my father-in-law and he's telling me like, oh yeah, like dude over there thinks you're cool, like from a coming from a 50, 60, 45 year
Yeah.
old man, like thinks 27-year-old me is a good guy. Like if he said he didn't like me, I'd be like, I don't care because I don't care, but it makes me feel good that like, holy crap, people actually kind of like me. Like,
Yeah. I
you
mean,
know,
regardless of, and I know you say you don't care, right? But it doesn't feel good to know that people don't want to be around you. It just
right?
doesn't, you know?
That's the situation. We're gonna see that a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And again, kind of rounding off back to the same topic. It's all about communicating your presence or communicating your thoughts, communicating how you are as a person to other people. It's I really cannot stress it enough. It is extremely important. We cannot, I mean, we can, but it is very difficult for us to survive all alone. And I mean completely isolated. And people, they might watch Naked and Afraid or, whatever TV show where they're out in the bush and they're living by themselves. You might watch that and say, "Oh, I could do that." But that's just TV and they're not operating alone.
Yeah,
Like
they're
not
definitely
truly alone. To be completely and totally isolated is a horrible feeling for a lot of people.
hopefully kind of students from here.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I will admit this. One of my greatest fears isn't your typical fear. It is being alone in the sense of completely isolated.
Yeah,
And think about those words when I say them. Complete isolation. It is very difficult to
and
live in
he means like not like you got trapped on an island or something and you're by yourself. Like he means like you've pushed everybody away. You've built up these walls, and you're not letting nobody
yeah, because you can be in a crowd full of people and still feel
and be
alone.
absolutely alone.
Yes. I've known so many people, including myself, that have felt the same way.
You know what? Like one person like me, uh, it's it's hard to let's see, like deal with a person like that, but it's hard to like completely understand it sometimes when a
Mhm.
person is like that, where they, I'm in the other room and they still feel completely alone because I'm off in the other room doing my own thing, and they're in the other room doing their own thing. So
Yeah, it's it's very very difficult. And so anybody who's watching this, if you feel that way, just know that there's at least one other person that has felt that way before and has gotten to the point in their life where they no longer feel that way.
yeah,
And so use that as a resource, please use that as a resource. That those people can teach you things that you may have never thought of, and it can help you pull you out of that hole of isolation.
it falls into the comfort zone. Then you
Hmm.
pull your walls up. That's your comfort zone now. Like you know, take a couple bricks out, let somebody step in, give them the chance.
Yeah.
If
We don't
if
grow
they
as people in comfort zones. We
if
can't get stronger or better in our comfort zone.
yeah,
That's not to say completely go off the edge and do all of these crazy things that you've never
yeah,
done before.
let us start
But
traveling to step out of your comfort zone.
a good, I love this example. I love it. And I'll give him a little bit of free promo to psychologist Jordan Peterson. He had spoke one day about a patient of his that has this insane fear of elevators. And when I mean insane, I mean like this very, very like deep-seated fear of elevators. They had the notion in mind that every time they would get in an elevator, it would just the cable would snap and they would fall to their death. And so the way that it was comfortable for them to be scared. It was
Right.
comfortable for them to never take an elevator, to always take the stairs.
Right.
But the way that he was able to get that person out of that fear, out of their comfort zone, is he's one day he was like, "All right, come out of my office," and they go in the hallway, and he's like, "Now look at that elevator." He's like, "Do you feel anxious? Do you feel anxiety?" A little bit, not bad, but a little bit. All right, now take a step towards it. How about now? Do you feel a little bit more? And then they slowly started taking steps toward that fear. And it eventually got to the point where they were so, I wouldn't say comfortable, but they were so open and willing to face it that they eventually rode on the elevator. So they stepped out of their comfort zone little by little. It doesn't have to be a big jump, but little by little, session after session. This wasn't in one day, obviously. This was over a multitude of sessions.
Yeah. And that's what I mean by like take a couple bricks down, you know.
Yeah, and eventually you'll have a doorway.
Yeah.
You don't have to trap yourself, you just don't. Even though some days it feels like it's easier to do that, to just hole up in a closet or a room and and
That's not to say that sometimes that's what works for some people is to occasionally, you know, throw the walls back up for the day and, you know,
yeah, I mean, and that
to yourself. And sometimes that's what helps people, but
yeah, but
you can't
speaking
just
in
live
the
in those walls forever.
yeah, speaking in the more general sense, right? Like you said, you can't live in those walls forever. There's nothing for you in those walls
Yeah.
because you're obviously your fulfillment doesn't come from whatever is in there. You're still living in some type of fear, you're still living in some type of suffering, and
I
you're
mean, just
allowing
like
yourself to do it.
yeah, and I mean, like staying in those walls, you're just gonna end up drowning yourself in your fears, your depression, your anxiety, your whatever, you know.
Hmm.
And then you're never gonna stop thinking about it. And that also reminds me of something that I told you to start doing. You know, I used to wake up every day and tell myself that I don't care to the point to where like and and it's a bad thing to do because now some things happen and I'm so used to it that I just don't care. But I woke up every day it was just like I don't care. So that way when like something went wrong, it was just like oh whatever, you know. And it's kind of a bad thing to do. Do it differently. Like however you did it is however you did it. But it worked for me to where I wasn't always so stressed out all the time. You know. I wouldn't waking up every day and like, man, I gotta do this, do that. I don't even want to do it. Like, I still don't want to do some things, but I know I have to. And that's what I mean by like, I woke up every day and was just like, I don't care. Like, you know what? Just get up and do it, get it over with.
Yeah, I think
And
I,
sometimes that's a bad way to deal with problems, but it helped me be a better version of myself. So,
I think because I did take what you had said into consideration, and it it personally didn't sit well with me because of maybe it was just the way that you expressed it. But
right.
I
Just remembering it's not,
right,
actually,
it's
find your own version of what I do.
what I did is I woke up every day, and I still do it to this day, and I had the same morning routine every morning. I wake up, brush my teeth, get dressed, whatever, and I'll either look into myself or I'll think to myself, don't sweat the small stuff, right? Don't let, because oftentimes, or at least for me anyway, it is my anxiety comes from a culmination of different events. It's usually not one event, it's usually one event that triggers a response, but a lot of times it's built up over a span of time. And I started looking back at why. like, why is this affecting me so bad? Why is it affecting my life and my work and my relationships with other people? And I realized that it was a bunch of little things all piled into one, and it made it way less manageable. And so when I realized, hey, it's a bunch of small stuff. I can knock out a bunch of small stuff. And to this day, I still do the same thing. Don't sweat the small stuff because the little stuff that you deal with, say you have a test tomorrow, right? If you're stressing out over it and you're freaking out, obviously you're not going to have time to study. You're not going to have time to prepare yourself like you need to. And so when you get there and you're actually taking it and you're trying to apply the things that you learn, you tend to forget it. But
Even though you know what it is.
when you kind of trust yourself and you don't sweat the small stuff, the little things, right? Another term I've heard a lot, and it's more older terms. Don't go crying over spilled milk. It's very insignificant or to the grand scheme of things. But typically, you'll forget what you had learned the night before. And so
Right.
I also had a test a couple days ago I had to do, and I studied the night before, and I went to sleep, and I said, you know what? I've done all I can do, and I can't stress myself up anymore about it. Um, and so when I
Right.
woke up that morning, I did it. I trusted myself. It was a pretty good day that day. I didn't get, 100%, but I got a passing grade, and
That makes a
that
big
was
difference.
enough. Yeah, that's definitely something to be proud of. Not every day will you be able to get 100%.
And you know what? That excuse me. It's, which is
Hmm.
to avoid. It's my job, but I'm really good at it. I still count myself all the time, but I'm like,
Same, yeah, same.
another layer there. See what the next layer looks like. All
Hmm.
right, get this one layer. Hey, send it over. It comes back to me. It looks great. Looks brand new. You know.
It's almost like a good example is almost like an artist painting a painting, right? They they consistently are looking at this painting for hours and days and weeks. And then at the end of it, when they think that they're done, they look at it and they're like, this is trash. This is trash. This sucks. That's an artist. A lot of artists deal with it. They have self-doubt. And that's not just with traditional artists, painters or whatever, but musicians,
Waffles.
yeah, all forms of art.
It's always it's hard thing to is the same. You're always gonna have it
Yeah.
because it like it comes from the anxiety, which is
But
another hard thing to fight. Yeah.
what's important and to round it back to what we were talking about, right? Communication isn't just with other people. It's how you talk to yourself. Because if you wake up every day, and I'm going to directly quote this man. If you wake up every day, you look in the mirror and say you'll never be enough, you'll never be enough. But if you do vice versa, wake up and say, it's going to be a good day. I'm going to get everything that I need done. Give yourself those positive affirmations. Communicate to yourself that, hey, this is going to happen. And understand that if it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. You will have such a better experience with life. You will be able to deal with problems so much more easy, or, with so much less difficulty than what you
And
probably are dealing with now.
before anybody says that it is, it's not impossible. You know why? Because I'm possible.
I, to this day, believe that there is nothing that's impossible. And
So
I'm not a religious man before
so
somebody comes at me for that.
so put a little joke in, right? This weirdly enough in my brain Steven knows what I'm about to say. Works for me a lot. If anybody ever remembers this commercial, like an early 2000s commercial, this is our childhood right here. I don't know why this sticks out to me and it works.
Just for the record, I don't know what he's about to say, and I'm kind of scared.
What? How does it go? Uh, if it's possible, it's popsicle or something like that. You know what I'm talking about. You know what commercial?
I
I
do,
don't
yeah, I
know
do.
why, but when I'm looking at something and I'm just like, dude, it's not gonna work. For some reason, my brain goes straight to my childhood. It goes, if it's popsicle, it's possible. The popsicles blew up, did they not?
It
Like
did, yeah.
it was possible. So this is possible, dude. You can literally do anything you set your mind to. Look at everybody that has came from nothing to something.
Hmm.
Like for an example of a couple of celebrities, like Terry Crews, Dwayne the Rock Johnson, like they have openly gone in interviews and say like they were homeless at a time, they were poor, they were stealing from gas stations, and doing stuff. And now look at them, you know. Now sometimes it's a stroke of luck, sometimes it's just all the hard work and dedication that you put into it. Sometimes it's that blood, sweat, and tears, but
Yeah,
you gotta try, you know. And
you,
my biggest thing with that is when you try, even if you failed, you tried, right? And
yeah,
that's good
I'm
enough.
definitely a firm believer of you don't actually ever fail until you stop trying.
Hmm.
You could take a break and you can do your own thing, step away from it for however long you want. But if you say that I quit trying, that's when you fail. That's when you
Yeah,
truly fail. And it's not only just failing whatever you're doing, it's failing a part of yourself because at one point in time you believe that you can do it.
yeah.
And now for whatever reasons, maybe you just don't want to deal with it being hard. You stopped. Like
Like I told you, sometimes you have to let the book write itself.
yeah,
You know, stop writing the
you
book for
do.
a second and pick it back up later. Take a break from the book.
Hmm.
You know, it's all the same thing.
Yeah, I think being able to being able to come back and talk to yourself in a healthy way, right? A healthy way, and give yourself those because at the end of the day, right, you're your own support system.
Right.
You can have as many people around you as you want or as many tools as you can possibly have, but they none of it's ever going to work if you can't support yourself,
Yeah. I
So
mean,
now
the,
sometimes
the
it takes someone else to make you realize that and to
yeah,
help you build that confidence in yourself, and that's fine. But when you're the one closing your eyes at night. You're the one
right.
waking up in the morning. You're the one
You're
facing your own challenges.
the one in your shoes.
Yeah,
You're the one dealing with your problems.
nobody else can wear your shoes.
No.
So I think this is a good reminder. All those people that are out there struggling and have struggled for a long time, give yourself a pat on the back. Give yourself some credit for what you have gone through and what you've
Because you've
made
made
it through. Yeah.
this far so much further. You might not have much further to go. You might be
Yeah.
near the line of overcoming what you're dealing with right
Yeah,
now.
you might be
So,
right at that goal and maybe on the verge of quitting and you can't. You can't give up on yourself like that. You should always invest in yourself in any way you can.
yeah, you know what you were saying with your you're the person dealing, with what you're dealing with. You can have those people, in the background cheering you on, whatever. I'm a prime example. Like, and you know better than I know all the years that I've gone to you about this and that, and everything you've said to me, everything you've told me that I needed to hear. And how long did it take me to finally put that into action and take it to heart? And like, to actually listen with curiosity and not just to
Yeah.
reply to you. You know, it what 4, 5 years before I came to you about something, you said something, and you were just like, "You're getting it now, bro. You understand it now."
It
And
really
you
honest
finally took it to heart.
honestly with
I think
you,
this man drop, but
no,
I
you're
think
good.
this man actually started crying because he was like, "Dude, you're actually taking everything I've said to heart. You're actually listening to me now. You're not just hearing me."
Yeah. I think with you it took a lot of I'm not the type of person to say I told you so. I think me personally, I think it's a form of bad communication that kind of puts yourself above the other person, and that's never the case, right? Like we're all equal. But I think for you, it took going through all of these different events in your life, whether it be good or bad, and remembering the things that I had said and the things that you had applied, and being like, damn, he was right. He did tell me that, or he was there to help me out. And then yeah, it sort of made you realize, like, holy shit, it's a real friend, it's
Just hear me.
no, that's not to say I don't give great advice all the time, but I give the best advice that I can. So,
Right, and I'm sure one of these episodes will probably be one of us is going through something and we want to use the podcast to talk about it.
hmm
But there there's definitely a lot of times now where like the recent stuff with you where I say some things and you're just like you take a deep breath, you sigh even because you're like,
yeah,
God, you sound just like me. Where do you think I get it from, dude? You know? And I say it every time. Where do you think I get it from? I get it from you because you you were my shoulder, bro. You were what I needed. And I just didn't realize it until I finally was like, holy shit, this man was right the whole time, dude. Like, and it took what a 2 hour conversation of you at like 8 o'clock in the morning, just like shut up and listen to me. I hate to say that to you, but shut up and listen to me. You need to hear
yeah,
this.
I remember exactly where I was when we had that conversation too.
Mm-hmm.
And
And now at the
I,
end of it, he was like, "All right, so I'm gonna come over to your house at like 5." And I was like, "Okay."
yeah,
But I needed that. That was I don't want to say that was like my breaking point of where I finally was like, all right, let me put it into play. It was definitely big a big portion of where I was finally like, I ain't even been listening to this man for real. Like I've been hearing what he's been saying and it's been sticking, but I just haven't really paid attention that it's been sticking.
yeah,
I've just been in one out the other, you know.
yeah. You've been filtering what you wanted to hear,
Right.
and so it got to the point, I think, for me as your friend to not say anything that you wanted to hear anymore, but to say everything that you needed to hear. And so eventually it was like, well, fuck, there's nothing else that I can filter out. You,
Right.
you see what I'm saying? Like it got to the
Yeah.
point where it's like he's only telling me things that I need.
Yeah.
So
I can't
I have to
can't
listen.
slide in those. He wants to hear this, so I'm going to say it, followed by a, he needs to hear this. It had finally turned into everything you need to hear. I'm about to tell you,
hmm
and not as a friend, but as a brother, because that we
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
very each learn about these episodes that
Yeah.
we may not be brothers, but we are brothers. So
Yeah. The I, don't-
and this
I don't
episode,
like this quote, but you'll learn why we say this eventually. I'm glad we mentioned it early. And it's a big reason why we're still doing this and we're gonna continue to do this for the foreseeable future, right? Everybody's heard the quote. Everybody's heard the quote, blood is thicker than water, but that's not the whole thing. The real quote is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, meaning you choose your family. You choose the people in your life. You choose who is going to continuously stay around you. And for whatever reasons, you choose them, right? It could be good, it could be bad. I mean, I'm sure he probably keeps me around for what could be seen as bad reasons to some of you, but to him it helps a lot, and vice versa, right? Like the shit that you tell me and the shit that we talk about helps a lot, and
Yeah.
it's definitely not what I want to hear.
Well, and it's also not. It's not a relationship because we need somebody to talk to. It's a relationship because we have grown into what we are.
Yeah,
Like
like in a
it,
sense, right? Me and you have grown up together,
right?
mentally grown up together.
To to begin with, like where we started, it was nowhere remotely close to what it is now. We were friends, we were hanging out, we were doing things we shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah.
Not caring about anything, no responsibilities. We had responsibilities that we should have had that we just didn't care about. But
Mm.
you know, like we've grown into what we are. And it's much deeper than I keep them around for like that personal gain because it's definitely not that. It's more I keep him around because I love the man to death. You know what I'm saying? He's been there for me when I needed him. He's been my friend when I needed him. He's he's been the friend when I wanted that friend. He's you know what I'm saying? We have our laughing and jokes, we have our serious, and that's what you look for in somebody that you care about.
Yeah.
And with that being said, like I appreciate everything that you ever do for me, have done for me, and will ever do for me, bro. Like it's
Vice
it's
versa,
much
dude.
deeper than just calling you my brother.
It really is, man, because you a lot of people don't get to find a friendship like this in their
It's a
lifetime
great moment.
sometimes. And there was a lot of instances where me and him have had a lot of issues with each other, little bullshit arguments, things that at the time seemed to be world breaking, but ultimately weren't.
Yeah. And I mean, there's still gonna be those times where we have those, but the difference is we know how
Yeah,
to communicate them now.
yeah. And I think,
And
yeah, that's just the friendship alone, that's a big, big part. Is
and I mean,
being able to talk to each other like adults.
without like completely talking about our jobs, like I've told you, I don't completely agree with the job that you do. Just you know how I feel about that.
Mhm.
But nonetheless, I'm proud of you. You're doing a job that I would do because of my beliefs on that job. But we communicated that. I'm like, I don't really like that line of work because of these things. And he was like, I get it, but I'm doing it because of this, because of that. Respect,
Yeah,
respect. I love you for it. Go do it. You're
there's
doing great things.
definitely deeper reasons that may or probably won't come out publicly,
Yeah,
at least for the foreseeable future, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's one big thing that we don't like to really talk about is
His work and
work lives and
yeah,
even some portions of our personal life.
right. Like to like set the ground rules. Like we're obviously going to share what we want to share, but like it is
Yeah,
never going to be a political stance or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, I don't care who you voted for. I don't. You don't need to care who I voted for because it's not about that right now. And I mean, I might mention what I do for work because I don't necessarily care if you know or not. You can come to my personal traits and find that out regardless. But it's not about that. It's not about what I do for work, what he does for work. His political
hmm
stance or my political stance. So it will never ever be about any of that because
or anyone else. Yeah, anyone else's for that matter, right? Like not just us, but
things can have an effect on your mental health, and that is what it is. But we're here for your mental health.
yeah. And if that's the case, right? If there's different current events that are affecting you, um, please reach out to either us, the Discord. uh, The Discord is very helpful. I want to promote that as much as possible because there's a confessions bot on there. You can go in and we do read them, but they're posted anonymously, so we don't know who sees them. Me and him personally reply to all of those. Um, in a
Now,
in a
occasionally,
fairly timely manner, right? We have our lives, so but
occasionally I will use anonymous reply. Sometimes somebody doesn't want to know telling them these things. They just want to know that somebody in general is telling them these
right,
things.
right.
But it'll go back and forth. But he will always personally reply to them.
Yes, I will never anonymously reply. And the biggest reason being is because I want you to personally know that, hey, I am here for you. I you like he said, you'll get those anonymous replies sometimes. That's fine. But
Yeah,
you can always expect at the very least me to say something, and you'll know that it's me.
yeah. And the reason we're like heavily promoting that Discord is because that's where we're going to be most active on. I guess we're going to have our Twitter. I'm still debating on a TikTok just for the exposure,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's where we'll be the most active. And I mean, seriously, never hesitate to personally message either one of us, tag us in the Discord, put a confession,
Yeah.
whatever is comfortable with you, because we both have it on our phone.
Hmm.
So I don't have to be at my computer to do it. He doesn't have to be at his computer to do it. So we're always going to see it. And whatever you're going through, whatever you put out there, I'm never too busy to listen to reply for it. Never. I
Yes.
don't care what I'm
Same.
doing at work. I don't care what I'm doing at the moment. Never too busy.
And
Now, of course, if I'm out to dinner with my wife, you might, we'll reply at some point or you see it, but that's a different story.
and
That's
uh,
me and her.
to speak on that a little bit more, he talked about we always have our phones on us. It's a common thing now. Um, but even with holidays coming up, right? I know holidays are a big struggle with people, especially people who have very little family or have lost family members. Um, I definitely encourage you to understand that the community that we've made, that we're building, it is exactly that, right? It is a family. If you don't have anyone, you have someone on there. You have one of us. Well, I mean, you have both of us, but there's someone that will be there if, regardless of your beliefs,
Yeah,
whatever. Come the holidays, if you need someone to talk to, we're always open. Like
yeah,
we're always there. You might have to wait, like you said, you might have to wait a second.
yeah.
Um,
We are great on cases. You got the understanding.
if it is a dire situation, right, and there's resources on this Discord, there's a whole channel dedicated to them. Please call one of those resources. Please.
Also, if you don't want to call that resource for whatever reason and you just want to talk to one of us, there is an option to call on Discord and not join a voice chat. You can directly call that
Yes.
person.
Yes,
Please
you
do
can.
that. Because if I don't see the message, because my phone is always on vibrate, if I don't see the message, I will feel my phone ringing. So,
At the
I will
very
answer.
least, yeah, at the very least, like if we're having a conversation and we cannot help you in such a way, we will personally find someone that can.
And
Because
it's fun. Because also let it be known that us two probably will not tell you what you want to hear. There's a
no,
time to tell you what you want to hear, and there's a time to tell you what you need to hear. And majority of the time, if it's something that deep, we're probably going to tell you what you need to hear.
yeah, as some people have seen on the Discord, right, I reply with the things that I think you might need to hear based on what you tell me, based on what you post into that. And I'm
Yeah,
sorry if it's not what you thought it was going to be, but that's not how I operate as a person, right? At the end of the day, I'm your friend, and
yeah.
friends don't let friends like hurt and deal with bullshit on their own.
And it's not to say that if you just want me to tell you certain things, like just hit me with the hey, I need reassurance. I don't really want to hear what I need to hear right now. Because not everybody wants to. And
Well,
I'm
I
fine
mean,
with that.
at the end of the day, right? If they're asking for reassurance, then they probably needed it.
They probably need it. So I mean you're probably still gonna get what you need to hear from me anyway. But
Yeah.
just
E-
just leave with that if you don't want me to go too deep into it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, either way, right? Like you share as much as you want to share. We'll respond based on what you share. The conversation could go deeper if you want it to. That's completely up to you.
We were having
And with that being said, right, we've already spoken about how we are not licensed medical professionals. That is why
correct,
there is a massive list and eventually continuously growing list of resources. Um, we can't give you medical advice, and we're not going to.
right?
And so if we think that maybe you should probably speak to someone a little bit more trained, you're probably going to hear that. And I'm sorry if you don't want to hear that because I know how a lot of people feel about therapy. If you don't want to hear that, I'm sorry, but we're not gonna lie to you. We're not gonna give you the runaround. It's it's just not who we are.
And if money is the issue for that, there is, you know, a lot of places offer like the first couple on them or a
Yeah.
discounted price. You know,
I'm
there's
so with yeah, with that, right? Like I'm doing my best to find resources that are free.
yeah,
Like I'm making that a a a very high priority to find resources that are free because when I was looking for people to talk to and I didn't want to talk to my friends or I didn't think that um they would understand. Obviously I didn't have a whole lot of money and I was looking online for free resources. A lot of these I've used, or not a lot of them, but some of them I have used. It does help. It does help to talk to someone. Just remember that. Communication, guys.
that's the biggest thing.
You
It's
gotta, you gotta,
the
you have to do it.
biggest thing, you know.
Whether you're
And
good at it, bad at it, it doesn't matter.
that's a great way to like when we were starting to do a little introduction, had a brief little talking, and then episode two being communication because it's the first step. It's what it starts with. You know,
So,
because not everybody can read those signals. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Not everybody
exactly.
can read
Especially
things.
over a text message or a Discord reply, right? So,
Telling the true emotion. Put
no,
capital letters. We'll just assume we accidentally add caps lock them.
no.
So
So, with that being said, right? Um, I
use
lost.
the outlets if you need them. Hit us up if you
Thank
need
you.
it. That's do not do not be afraid to message one of us. To call one of the numbers and the resources. To get on the website on one of the resources. Do it over chat, Zoom call, go in person, whatever. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, whatever it is, step out of those comfort zones. Don't get comfortable feeling horrible and suffering on your own because it's not a good place to be, and that's coming from experience. So,
Yeah. And always remember, we will love you no matter what.
yes, we don't judge. We listen and we don't judge. Hmm.
So if you think nobody else loves you, I don't even need to know you. I love you.
Yes. Definitely love you enough to listen to your problems, and I would rather carry the weight of your thoughts than carry your casket. So, and with that being
All right.
said, that is episode 2. Thank you all for tuning in. Um, episode 3 will be out next week. We don't know what it's going to be about yet.
Episode two will be uploaded on what? On
Yep.
YouTube and Spotify's. Please go look us up on YouTube and Spotify. Share it with your friends, your family,
Yep. Any
cousins, your
any
brothers, your
anybody
sisters,
you
whatever.
might think that needs help that doesn't want to, reach out, just drop them the
Tell
link.
tell a stranger, tell your gas station employee, tell them all.
Yep.
Tell them all.
Tell them
We
all.
get on the Discord. You know, I will get links together from all the other social medias and everything else,
Hmm.
so that
Yeah.
they're easy to find, so that you can pass them out, what have you. Yeah.
Yes. Feel free to tell your friends, tell the world about what we're doing here. Another thing before we go, right? This is completely done out of our own pockets. This is not something that we're going to be asking for money for. This is not something that we're going to be taking donations for. If I do set up donations, it will be to other charities that provide help to people that need help, right? I will not be taking any of our viewers' money. Alex will not be taking a single dollar of any of our viewers' money. That's not what this is for. That's not what this is for.
Not a personal.
No. This has nothing to do with what we can get out of it. This is everything to do what you as a viewer can get out of it. So just remember that when you're thinking about telling your friends or whatever about our show. It's for you guys, not for us.
Yep, this podcast is we, not me, him.
Yes.
This week it's us.
All right. Well, I will see you guys next week. Thank you for tuning in. Um, like you said, stay updated. Reach out if you need to. Love you guys.
You know what? Keep your head up. You're doing great. Love you.
Bye.